Hi everyone, aloha and welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a couple minutes. So go ahead and kick back, relax, and we'll get started shortly. Aloha everyone. For those who are just joining us, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. If you guys have any questions, feel free to go ahead and start putting those into that Q&A. We'll go ahead and tell you a little bit more about the next steps here in just a moment. Welcome everyone. Looks like we're already at over 100 different people today. Very exciting. We got a lot of great questions that were asked ahead of time, so we'll definitely do our best to go ahead and cover all of those questions. I see we have some questions being put into the Q&A, so absolutely go ahead and keep putting those questions into the Q&A. That'll be perfect. Just so you guys know, throughout the presentation, if you guys do not see your question populating under the Answered tab, do not worry. We are actually organizing all of the questions on our end, and we will be covering those questions at the end. So do not worry. If your question doesn't get answered right away, we still see it, don't worry. And then just a few reminders, this is a webinar, so you all can see us. However, we cannot see you. So please just keep that in mind. Definitely make sure to keep using the Q&A like you already are. We have a chat button, but use that more for general chat, not for questions. If you guys put any questions into the chat function, we will not see them. So make sure to put those in the Q&A. We're definitely here to answer any questions you may have. I know I'm personally really excited that we have Kenny Lopez joining us here today from Student Housing. For those who are wondering, we are recording this session and we will post it to our YouTube page at the end. So I will definitely make sure to touch bases with you guys about more information about that. I'll put it into the chat as well. But I want to say thank you all so much for taking time out of your afternoon. For those who are coming from, Australia, New Zealand area, your morning. And then for those joining us from the East Coast or Europe, your evening time. So thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Kenny Lopez, who's going to share a little bit more about our student housing with you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Amber. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're all joining us from. My name is Kenny Lopez. I serve as an assistant director in student housing, and I'm excited to share this next about hour with you all to talk a little bit about student housing and answer some of the questions that you all may have about the process, about our facilities as well. So just for folks to know right off the bat, so housing will be open for the 21-22 academic year. And as you all can see in my screen currently, I will kind of work through the website so that you all have a general understanding of what can be found here and some useful tips in places where information can be found. So I'll start first with our URL, which is manoa.hawaii.edu/housing. So this is our main homepage. The most useful tab for folks coming in is going to be the communities tab. So communities, you'll be able to see all of the housing communities that we have on campus. If students are coming in as first-year students, most of them will live in Halealoha, which are these circular buildings here that you'll see. So this is where the majority of our first-year students live. All four of them are exactly identical. They're just mirror images of one another. And you can see them here. So this page I feel is really, really useful because you'll be able to see, for example, in this case, Halealoha is a freshman only community. And you'll see that it is a double occupancy community bath for $6,301 for the academic year. I know a big question for folks is, what is this going to look like in our COVID era? So at the moment, all of our traditional residence halls will be single occupancy, but you will still be paying the double occupancy rate. So this rate, the $6,301, are for the academic year. So that is for both fall and spring semesters. That includes all breaks, so spring break, winter break, all of those breaks in between. The only additional cost that folks will be responsible for is for the meal plan. And that is considered separate because you have quite a large array of options that you can choose from in terms of meal plan. From a small meal plan, which is our 7, our average meal plan is 10 meals a week, or 14 or 19 meals a week. So depending on which one you choose and how many points and bucks you want to add to it, that's varying the cost. Okay, so I'll talk about meal plans more here in a second if folks have those questions. So if you click on any of these, you can learn more about our communities. Here specifically, you'll see what the names stand for. You'll be able to see the mailing addresses of the buildings, some of the breakdown of the amenities in there. Each one of the towers houses approximately 260 students. Our communities are co-ed. And example, again, these are all first-year communities. We do have elevators, community laundry, community kitchens, Wi-Fi access, and then what are the furnishings in the rooms, in the residence hall rooms. One of the really cool features that you can see in all of our communities is we have these pretty amazing 360 views that you can actually click and drag and see all the different parts of the room already. So you can actually go into pretty much every single one of our layouts and see what is actually there. So I think that's a really cool feature. I'm going to keep scrolling here. And at the bottom, it tells you the distance from different key pieces or places on campus. For example, our Haliloha cafeteria, the market, Gateway Caf, and the campus center, what the walking distance is from there, as well as a map of campus and where that is in our community. So again, this is very similar. So you'd be able to click on Freer Hall, for example, Gateway House, all of these different communities, so you'd be able to see that. Depending on, so for students, we also have here on the communities tab, we have special communities or specialized communities. So for folks who are graduate students, if you have are interested in becoming part of an RLP program, as an example, that is also something that's available for students. And here you'll see a list of what our residential learning programs that we have currently with us are. So we do understand that this is not an exhaustive list. So right now we only have 13, but these are for students who have either academic interests or social interests. So here you can see, for example, the College of Natural Sciences, which is one of our highly competitive programs, where students can choose to live with someone who's studying a very similar academic field as them. Some of the benefits to these are, again, living with someone who's studying very close or same subject matter, same major, plus the fact of you also have faculty involvement in the residence halls very actively, tutoring sessions, academic advising in the halls, different trips and activities to help you prepare for a career in that field. So you'll see the list of some of the academic ones and then some of the cultural or specialized communities, Halipakea, which is our native Hawaiian community, Japanese Filipino, Rainbow Village, and Alice Ball, which is our newest one. So we'll be able to find all of this on our housing website. For folks who know they want to come to Manoa, have already decided, yes, I'm coming to Manoa, this is how you apply. You hit the apply tab. You'll be able to see the academic year, 21-22, and then you can go ahead and apply here. The application fee is $25. When you apply, you will be asked to prioritize your top 3 choices in communities. So you'll be able to, once again, go back to the communities tab and click which one of the 3 buildings you want to be your first choice, second choice, and third choice when you do that. So that's a pretty neat thing. Folks who have already applied for housing, we will not start touching contracts or do anything until the priority deadline has passed. So again, I'm going to repeat that one more time. So if you've already started the process, you've already applied, we will not get any communication from us until mid-May. Our priority deadline is May 1st, similar to a lot of the admissions deadlines of May 1st. So after that is when we'll start the process. If you apply by May 1st, you'll be guaranteed a spot to live on campus. Again, if you apply by May 1st, you'll be guaranteed a spot to live on campus. So let's see. So I will stop sharing my screen and answer other additional questions if folks have them about our website. And we can go right on in, Amber, if that's okay with you, just to answer some questions.
Sounds great. It looks like we've got a lot of great questions so far. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you a few questions, just kind of reiterating. I know you've already talked about it. We had some latecomers. So just clarifying, for the fall 2020, are students allowed to have roommates? And what happens exactly if a student requested a roommate, but now it is single occupancy?
Of course. So fall 21-22, fall 21 at the moment, we are seeing we are going to be single occupancy in our traditional residence halls. So we are working closely with our operations team, our maintenance staff, as well as the Department of Health and CDC and all of the other folks who are the powers that be to determine what spaces we can have as singles and what spaces can have double occupancy. For example, in our apartments, because they are larger spaces, those will be regular occupancy, but any space that is not more than 6 feet apart and cannot socially distance will be singles. So our traditional residence halls, for example, will be singles for the fall semester. Again, that is right now, only for fall will be singles. Spring, it depends on where we're at.
Yeah, and so speaking of that, a student was asking, naturally, as we know, COVID, everything changes pretty much every month. But say if, things do go back to normal-ish, the new normal for spring, will the students who registered for a full year contract, will they need to move rooms, and so if it switches to double occupancy again?
No. So students will stay in one room for the whole academic year, unless they choose to transfer to a different community, different hall, things like that. So if we do go back to a sense of normalcy for spring semester, we may add a second roommate to that bedroom or room specifically, but all of that will be communicated in a variety of different methods to the students so that they are aware of that upfront.
Okay, perfect. And so if, say they do, I have a student that asked if they do end up getting roommates for spring, completely, we'll see what happens. How will it be assigned? How would it be your best guess? I know this is still very in advance.
Sure, absolutely. So we do not use a lot of the different platforms that other schools use to determine roommates. So we use very few of those. So there will be two different options. If you know someone who lives on campus that you want to room with, there will be that option first to have you transfer to room together. If that is not the case, then we'll have pretty much an open transfer to move folks into open spaces.
Nice. Okay, perfect. And then kind of going still a little bit more on that, as I'm just trying to see where there's a lot of great roommate questions, of course, is for the people who did request a roommate, obviously that's not going to happen, at least for the traditional style housing for fall. But say for those who are requesting rooms like freer or are the more apartment type style, will their preferences be considered in that situation?
So again, just to be mindful that freer in the apartments are only for upper class students, so sophomores and above. So a traditional freshman who graduates in the spring of 2021 will not be able to apply for freer specifically. So most of our freshmen, as I mentioned, will live in the Holly Aloha Towers as well as Gate Johnson Hall. Yeah. But if you are a second year transfer student, anything like that, graduate student, and you want to live in the apartments or freer hall, you would be able to request a roommate because you will have roommates in those spaces.
Okay, perfect. So what would happen, say, if a student, because I know I've had a lot of incoming freshmen who have inquired about freer hall because they get excited because they hear about the air conditioning and such naturally. Yeah. If freshmen do request freer hall, will they just be automatically routed more towards those freshman incoming housing?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. let's see, we've got a lot of other great questions as well. So kind of switching into, I guess, actually a couple more questions about the single occupancy
Sure, go
is,
for it.
will the furniture remain in the room? Will, like, even though it's single occupancy, is it still going to have the 2 beds, 2 desks,
Yes, so
everything?
everything will remain in the room and need to stay in the room. So yes, you will still have the 2 beds, you will still have everything that is in the room.
Gotcha, perfect. And then one last question about, so if the people requested a roommate, obviously they're not going to be together, are they going to be considered to be on the same floor, or is it just going to be just going off of what their general preferences are?
Sure, it will be they will try to put folks together, but that won't always be the case. So what we suggest is, if I want to room close to Amber, what I would do in that case is make sure that all 3 of our priorities or all 3 of our preferences match, so that there's a higher likelihood of us living together in the same floor, in the same community all together.
Perfect. That, I know they'll definitely be happy to hear about that. I got some fun questions. I love this. One student is asking, are you allowed to put the 2 beds together since there are 2 beds?
Potentially. So it's a little complicated because our policy says no, but we're not going to go in there and check. So I will say potentially.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was like, fire codes. We'll see.
Right.
So kind of changing the conversation now, a little bit to more general type questions is, the first simple question is, are the residence halls co-ed?
They are. So all of our residence halls are co-ed.
Perfect. And then are freshmen required to live on campus?
No, there is no housing requirement here at UH Manoa. However, it is strongly encouraged, at least for 1 year, that students, typically your first year, that all students do live on campus. We have done a ton of different studies and research on this specifically. And we do know that students who do live on campus, at least for 1 year, are more likely to graduate in 4 years, have a better sense of belonging and community to campus, and have a typically a higher GPA as well. So we do encourage students to live on campus for 1 year, get your bearings straight, especially if you're not from Hawaii, or from Oahu specifically, and then your 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, whatever you like, to then figure out if moving off campus works best for you.
And kind of speaking about that, I know a lot of people have questions, especially the upperclassmen, about,
Sure.
is it better to live on campus or off campus? So would you want to talk more about how many students live on campus and what they can kind of expect living on campus versus off campus?
Absolutely. So in a normal year, we have just a little over 4,000 beds on campus. This year we went down quite a bit, obviously, with our occupancy. But if folks can look kind of behind Amber there, you'll see that something unique about our campus is that we don't have a traditional residential community right around campus like most other institutions have apartment complexes and houses and things like that that students can rent. So that does make it challenging for our students to find places off campus. And if they do, they typically have to commute quite a ways. So for that reason, we do offer multi-year housing option. So we do offer freer, which is more a suite style living, and then we also do have the apartments, which are very traditional apartments like you would find anywhere else. So I would honestly say it just depends on what people need, and some of the convenience of being on campus, being close to your classes, being close to, like, if you're not, I'll speak for myself, I'm not a really big cook, so I can easily go to the cafeterias and grab a quick bite to eat, and then go home and study, do things like that, versus having to make food and we sit in traffic a few hours or an hour or so each way to go to class. So it varies, and I think each person has an individual case to kind of weigh out what makes sense for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've got a lot of questions of students coming from the continental US kind of asking of the price comparison. At least from my personal experience, I feel like it's pretty much equal when it comes down to breaking down the meal plans, the cost per month and all of that. I feel like on other campuses coming from the mainland, I know student housing can be a lot more expensive, but here, at least for me, it's personally averages out. Would you agree with that, or very similar?
I would absolutely agree. And then you're also looking at how much time are you going to be spending on your commute, right? Like gas money, bus money, time that you're spending commuting on the H1, either coming east or west, things like that. So you have to balance all of it out. But if you're looking at dollar for dollar, it evens out in many cases to living off campus. So it just depends on what students want, honestly.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for clarifying that.
Absolutely.
Now, some other really fun questions that I like as well is, let's say, so which of the residence halls have the air conditioning? And for those who don't have an air conditioning, what would you suggest?
Sure. So the only building that has, you have two that have air conditioning. One of them is Freer Hall, and the other one is Hawai'i Nui Nui. So those are the only two buildings that have air conditioner. Um, Realistically, the majority of the year, air conditioner is not really necessary. We have something really great called trade winds that kind of cool off, call it our natural air conditioning. So you can open a window, put a fan, and you'll get a nice breeze throughout the room. Moving day, without doubt, every single year or moving week is absolutely the hottest week known to humanity. But outside of that, students get acclimated pretty quickly to the temperature here in Hawaii, and will do just fine without air conditioner. Just a fan works just fine.
Yeah, I really could not agree more. For those who are coming from the mainland, most of the apartments here on island don't offer AC either, so that's a very uh, normalized thing here. So if you think it's very strange, I know my students coming from California who live close to the beach, it's the same kind of thing. It's the same here in Hawaii.
It is a
Now,
very
for
rare thing
those
to have
students,
here.
it really is. You cherish it for those times you do. Now, kind of going into a little bit more of like freshman versus transfer, I know there's a lot of questions of what is considered to be a freshman student in the housing and what's considered to be transferred, just because for admissions for us, you can be an older student, but technically still be a freshman applicant. So how does that work for housing?
Mhm. So this year it's a little complicated because COVID, a lot of folks took gap years and things like that. So I will speak about that a little bit later. But specifically, we do not look at AP, IB, we don't look at any of that. We specifically look at what year did you graduate high school. If you graduated high school spring of 2021, you're considered a freshman coming in. Anyone who has done, um, who is graduated before that would be considered a transfer student or not a traditional freshman in that sense. So for our gap students who took the year off because of COVID or for whatever other reason, they're a little bit in a different situation. So this year we are going to look at what year they graduated high school to determine if they would qualify to be in a traditional freshman community or they will go to our upper cost community. So it's a little bit challenging with those group of folks, but that's kind of how we determine freshmen versus non-freshmen.
Okay. Now, for the residence halls, kind of talking more about the actual amenities and the halls themselves.
Sure.
The first big question is RAs. Are resident advisors in every single residence hall, and what is the security like?
Sure. Every single residence hall will have a variety of RAs. So we have an RA either on every floor or two floors. So we do have fully trained staff. So the RAs do come in about 2.5 weeks before school starts to go through pretty intensive training on just about all the things that we will encounter. So from emergency protocols, natural disasters, first aid CPR, to safety and security, roommate mediation, conflict mediation, things like that. So we do have pretty extensive training that they go through. On top of the RAs, there's also a full-time master's level professional that does live in every residence hall as well. That position is called a residence director, RD, and they're the ones who supervise the RAs. So they do also live on campus with the students, so they're there to facilitate any situation that the RAs may have difficulty with or after hours crisis response. So in terms of safety and security, I'll speak about what happens in the residence halls and then kind of our partnership on campus. So in the residence halls, every door, every entrance is key card access. So you'll have similar to a hotel, you'll have a card that is specifically given to you, which you will swipe to let you in your front door. You will use it again to access the elevator or stairwell, and then once again for your room, as well as the bathroom. So we have multi-checkpoints to make sure that we are being as safe as possible when students are on campus. With that being said, our RAs do community walks every night. They do about 3 or 4, depending on the day of the week, around our communities to make sure doors are closed, to make sure that residents who live there are there and not strangers or people coming in from the community, things like that. We do have a Department of Public Safety on campus. So we do not have a deputized police department. So our Department of Public Safety does do rounds of our residence halls as well. So you'll see them in the cars, just driving around to make sure that things are okay. We'll support our staff if we ever need them to. We do have blue lights scattered throughout campus as well. So I believe it's somewhere in ups of 100 blue lights. So at any point in time, if a student feels unsafe, they can hit that button. That will directly go to the dispatch operator, as well as a camera will be activated so the students can talk to them and let them know whatever the situation is. Our Department of Public Safety also does have a Guardian app, which is an application that our students can click and use as a self-timer. It's going to take me 10 minutes to walk from St. Clair Library to my residence hall room. So if in 10 minutes I don't get there and turn off the timer, DPS officer will call your phone to make sure that you are safe and you are okay. We also offer what's called the Escort Service. So from sun down to sun up, any student can call this number and we'll get a student worker or a DPS officer to either walk with them or drive them if they feel unsafe doing that alone after hours. So that is a pretty cool service that we also do offer for our students. If it is raining, you can certainly expect there to be a longer wait. Some students do tend to use it as a personal taxi, which is not the purpose of it. And they will be able to drive students approximately about a mile off campus. So they do go just a little bit around campus, but they're not going to take you 10 minutes into Waikiki. So that's a little bit about the safety. We do remind students often that our campus is not a bubble. People do walk in. We are a large metropolitan city. They need to use common sense and personal safety tips as well. We ask that students do walk on lit paths, that they do walk in buddy system, pair system, if they possibly can, that they're not out running with 2 headphones in at night, wearing dark clothing, that they use some of those different strategies and tips to make sure that they are safe while on campus, that they're using locks to lock up their bikes or their mopeds, that they are not letting people who they don't know into residence hall rooms, things like that.
Perfect. Now I've seen the students have had a lot of questions about kind of the details. I know each residence hall is naturally a little bit different in its own way, but they're kind of curious to hear more a little bit about COVID and their protocols as far as like the bathroom, the shared bathrooms, as well as the kitchen. And would you able to talk more about that?
Absolutely. So about 95% of our communities have what we call I drew a blank, semi-private bathrooms. So essentially it's the same thing that you would have at home. So you would, once you go into the bathroom, if you lock the door behind you, you'll have all that you need in that physical space. So you'll have your sink, your shower, and your toilet in there. So student can use it. And then once you leave, the next person comes in right after you, can be of the same or opposite gender as yourself. So we no longer have what traditionally was called gang-style bathrooms. That we don't have those anymore on any of our facilities. So that's a little bit of the bathroom. In terms of the cleaning, some of those different pieces. So we do have an in-house custodial staff that do clean the restrooms. Typically in a traditional year, twice a day. Now with COVID, we'll do a lot more of that cleaning plus sanitizing of the high touch impact spaces to make sure that those are all clean and sanitary as well.
Right, and kind of talking a little bit more about the kitchens themselves. I know some people will naturally be on the meal plans, but they may want to cook, which we'll talk a little bit more about the amenities that they have to be able to cook in the residence halls.
Absolutely. So again, thank you. That's a good point. So any student who lives in a traditional residence hall, so i.e. you're not in the apartments, you are required to have a meal plan. Again, every one of our facilities does have a kitchen. So if a student is interested in cooking for themselves, they can do that. We do have very minimal cooking supplies for them. Pots, pans, spatulas, the very basic stuff available to borrow at the front desk. So the student can borrow that and go up to as an example, in Halealoha Towers, the kitchen's in the roof. So it does have a full-size fridge, full-size stove, oven, sink to be able to cook and make yourself dinner there or some family food that is comfortable and comforting for you. So that is an option. In the apartments, you will have a kitchen in your own, obviously in your own apartment. So you're able to do that and you would then be required to bring your own cooking utensils.
Great, I think that's such an awesome thing that they could do, because I know especially if students aren't able to go home for the holidays, that then they could do a little Friendsgiving depending on the times and such, which is always a great option for them. Now,
Absolutely.
speaking of which, we know we have a lot of students coming from all across the world. Would you like to talk more about what happens during breaks, as well as what happens, say over summer, or if they just want to store anything?
Sure. Again, we are open to all breaks. So winter break, spring break, any holidays, things like that, we are still a fully functioning operation. So students can remain with us or just leave their items here with us. That is completely fine. In a normal year, we do have summer housing. So students can choose to stay with us to go to summer school, which is really cost effective for a lot of students to stay here and go to summer school and get advanced or do some other classes that they may need. So that does come at an additional cost. So our contracts are for the academic year only, so fall and spring, and students can add on summer if they choose to do that. In terms of storage, we don't particularly right now have partnerships with any storage companies, but there are quite a few because they know that all of our students need them surrounding campus and in the community that offer some really good deals for our students. A lot of them will also pair up with a person or two to store all their items over the summer in order to pay a little bit less. Some of these companies are even able to come into the and pick up items from your residence hall, so you don't have to find a way to ship it over to the storage company.
Perfect. Now, I know another question kind of is more about, say, if they want to store, like, have a surfboard or where they would put their bikes. Would you want to talk more about that as well?
Absolutely. So we do have one place on campus that we can store. It's an outdoor space. It's called a freer bike cage is what we call it. Students can submit to have stored bikes, mopeds, motorcycles, surfboards, things like that there. Students can also bring them into the room as long as it doesn't impede access to doors or windows in case of an emergency. So students can bring those. If you have 6 longboards, obviously that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Or if you then get a roommate in spring semester, just to be mindful of that space and things like that. But if you just have a small surfboard or even a pedal bike that breaks down into collapsible, you can bring that into the building. But we do have bike racks throughout pretty much our entire campus facility that students can use. We just ask that they please make sure they buy a quality lock. Amber and I both went to a biking school, so we know a good U-lock will save you. So certainly making sure you have a good lock would be a smart thing to do.
Yeah, kind of going a little bit more off of that. I know students have heard that the biggest crime that we have on campus is definitely moped stealings and bike stealing. So of course, we do recommend having that good lock. But would you want to talk a little bit more about if there's any other tips that you have for students to avoid something like this, if it is truly a concern?
Sure. Again, we aren't in a bubble, so certainly making sure you have a good lock for your moped, for your bicycle, and making sure that you aren't writing your room number, for example, on your key. The keys are very, I'm trying to find mine very quickly, are very universal. So they do have our logo, just student housing and arrow. So if you look at that, you won't really know where it belongs to. And if I write my room number on it, that you're doing something that is gonna potentially harm your safety, right? So just making sure that people are just being careful and aware that if you lose your key, just come to the front desk and we will be happy to make you another key. And by us making you another key, that expires your old key, right? So just some of these safety tips. Don't just wait around like, oh, I'll let my roommate or just prop my door open. Don't do that, because then that is putting all your items in a compromised position. So some of those things I think are tips, are helpful tips for students to know, just to make sure they're being safe.
Perfect. And then I know this has been a big question that's been asking recently, been popping up a bunch just now, is would you want to talk a little bit more about how parking works? I know parking is definitely very, very, very limited to freshmen if they get it at all. So would you be able to talk more about that?
Absolutely. So again, as Amber mentioned, it is very, very limited. In a traditional year, parking is based off of seniority, for lack of a better term, for simplicity's sake. So it's based off of credits that a student has. So when you register for classes, it will tell you if you're eligible or not eligible to get a parking pass. So I know that that is quite difficult for a lot of folks, because they're like, I want to bring my car. For a lot of our first and second year students, it really isn't suggested, in my opinion, to have a car. You can get a moped for half the price of a parking pass, really, or even less. And you can easily get to and from a lot of the locations that you need to. Again, just getting a good lock and you're good. We also do have a really good bus system that gets you pretty much throughout the entire island. So it's very creatively called the bus. So with your tuition and fees and all that stuff that you pay for, you get free access to it. All you need to do is get a little sticker on your ID, you show it to the bus driver, and you're able to get on there for free. Not for free because you pay for it, but you can use it. And that will get you to a lot of the really cool places that you need to on the island. So whether you need to go to Ala Moana, which is our shopping mall, Target, Walmart, to Waikiki, to go to the beach, things like that, you can easily do that. So back to the question, parking just around campus or even in the residence halls is very, very limited. So we do have a small number of those passes are offered to students who do have a job off campus. But again, that's completely on a lottery system. And typically that's about 100 that we have. So it's not for everyone. Parking around, so a lot of folks will find parking in the community around campus to park for free, which is certainly an option, but we strongly discourage that, because then your car is just left out in the elements for whatever could potentially happen. So I personally believe year one, get a moped. You'll find friends who are from here or upper class students who do have cars to get you to some of those places. So I think that's the easiest and best way, honestly. And then year two, year three, then you can figure out if it makes sense to bring your car back to campus.
Yeah, I could definitely not agree more. For students, I know you guys have heard me talk about this before if you've attended the other Warrior webinars. I was a person that I brought my vehicle, and especially for those who are current students, you really do not need a vehicle around here. Being honest, if you want to take your car anywhere, parking is really stressful to find here in Hawaii. It is not easy. It's very expensive. It is technically a city. So there's so many times where I have just taken, we have a bike share program called Vicky Bike that's all around the campus as well as through town, that I actually personally prefer to take that 9 times out of 10 or I walk, just because it's such a hassle. So I went through the process of shipping my car here. It was a whole thing. It was very stressful, very expensive. It took over 6 weeks to arrive here. Just don't do it. Just trust me when I say I've been there, done that, and I don't recommend it. But yeah, so definitely just, you'll make friends on the bus. Don't worry. That's the best part of it, is you'll get to socialize with others as well.
Absolutely.
So kind of transitioning into a little bit more about the residence halls and exactly what is allowed in them, what is not. I know you kind of touched bases on this, and all of this information is available on the website as well. So moderators, if we can have you assist with putting that link into the chat. Just a couple quick questions. First off, starting with the AC. People, of course, are very interested to learn more about AC regulations, which, you know, is of course a thing. So the first one is, if you have a disability and require an AC, is that what an exception for it, and how does that work?
Sure. So let me share my screen if that's okay, which I have here. So if you have a disability that you need special accommodations, you can certainly do that. So I will show you. So if you go to communities, we have disability accommodations. You can click on that, and that works with our Kakua office, which in here means help. So our Kakua office will be able to assist you in what is required and all of that stuff to make sure that we do meet all your accommodations that you need to be successful on campus. Please note that it does require medical documentation. It does require quite a bit of time in advance to get everything squared away, to get everything authorized for you to have an air conditioner in your room if you are permitted to do so. So there are deadlines here at the bottom of when we strongly encourage folks to work on that if they are going to have accommodations. That goes for ESAs, that goes for air conditioning, that goes for a lot of those other things as well. So yeah, I would certainly encourage folks to communicate with the Kakua office, and they will be more than happy to assist you with that process.
Now, another question, one more about the AC for now. We'll go ahead and talk about other items. Is Sure. If a student wants to bring a portable AC, is that an option or just fans?
No, you are not able to have any sort of air conditioner just because of the energy usage that comes out of them. And some of our buildings are a little bit older. So we just want to be mindful of usage of power and energy that goes into them. So that's why the buildings that are specifically allowed to have them have been retrofitted for that. So just fans.
Oh, perfect. And honestly, students, please do not stress about the no AC thing. It is really not that big of a deal. My apartment does not have AC. I'm completely fine. All you need to do is really just get a good fan, and that's all you need. You'll be good throughout the year. So some questions about the appliances. So what kind of appliances are big no-nos, and which ones do you recommend students to bring on a personal level?
Absolutely. So specifically being in Hawaii, things that a lot of folks will bring are like rice cookers, things like that. Absolutely, you're able to have those. Obviously bring a microwave, bring a mini fridge. We have specific guidelines for how big or small those can be, but you can certainly bring those. And that's what to bring and what not to bring list, which is in the chat feature. Things that are prohibited are anything with an open heating element. So anything George Foreman's, toasters, unless you live in the apartments, things like that that could easily catch on fire are not allowed. That goes for coffee makers that don't have an automatic off switch, things like that. Because you do live in a community living, we just want folks to be safe on what they have and bring with them to campus.
Perfect. And then also, as far as the mini fridges and such, are they able? Do they need to purchase it, or do they have the option to rent one?
So we do not currently have the option to rent. That is something that we are working on, but COVID happened and things got a little away from us. So we right now, those are things that people can buy. Every year we haven't really gone to the closing of the academic year yet, but we typically have a donation piles as well. So any student who is leaving and not coming back will donate their mini fridge. Folks will clean it up, fix it, and we will offer those up for grabs for students coming in the following year. That is in a typical year. This year, we don't know if that's going to actually happen or not. Something that I would suggest for things like that, larger things. So we do have a program called on-campus marketing, so OCM. That is a good way for students to be able to buy all the linens, all of the toiletries, all of that stuff that they need for the rooms without having to bring it with them from the continent or from abroad, wherever you may live. So that already will have all the different dimensions of your bedding and all of that stuff. So that's a really cool feature. Folks will also use Target, Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, all of those different places to ship items to campus before moving. So I know that is a big one for folks. So we strongly, strongly, strongly ask that items please not get to campus 1 week prior to move-in. Reason being, we just don't have the capacity to store items all summer for all 2,000, 3,000 people that we have living on campus. So we ask that people please wait to ship items or buy items to a little bit closer to the time that they're going to be arriving to the island. Hawaii also does have a much less expensive sales tax than a lot of other places. So being from California, I'm so used to almost 10%. Hawaii does have 4.7. So things do tend to be a little bit cheaper here. So we do have Costco, Sam's, Target, Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, some of those places that people can buy items here when they arrive on campus.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is every time I go back to California, I'm like, oh man, this is so expensive. But yeah, definitely feel free to go ahead and purchase your items here. Something also to note is the fact that I believe it's pretty much all the places now offer delivery of some kind of sort, either through, not Postmates, but shipped, different delivery services. So definitely just check the different stores' websites. You can even specify the exact day. So say if you arrive in the residence halls, you can do the online shopping, have them deliver it to the next day. You're already in the residence halls. So it just makes it easier. Don't recommend buying too many things ahead of time, just because you may show up and you may not need it. Don't do that. I did that. I spent way too much money.
Absolutely. On that, Amber, I will also talk a little bit about just moving, because I know that is a big question for a lot of folks. So with COVID policies in place, so move-in has been spread out just a little bit more than it typically is. So our move-in happens from Monday, August 16th through the 19th. So it's Monday through Thursday. That is what our move-in window happens. So please don't start buying flights and booking tickets and all of that stuff just yet. So what we do is once a student is contracted, so I'm going to use you, Amber, as an example. So you filled out your housing application. We said, yes, we want you to live on campus. We send you your contract. So you'll have 2 weeks to review that contract, sign it, and turn it back into us. When you submit your contract, you will have a $400 deposit that will be due. That $400 deposit does go towards your fall rent. Shortly after you submit your deposit and your contract, so you're all good to go, you will get a link from us that will specifically give you the option to sign up for a check-in appointment. So that check-in appointment will be your time that Amber has specifically to move into the residence halls. So we are very cautious about just social distancing, about elevator usage, things like that. So we do have a very strict limit on how many people can check in to each building at a certain time. So for that reason, we do have very strict windows of when each building is open. So again, the 16th through 19th is our traditional residence halls. The apartments will be opening up because they are for upper class students that following weekend. So that is one of those big pieces of that folks have a lot of questions about. And folks who will be allowed 2 people to help them move into the residence hall. All persons coming in must go through the Safe Travels Hawaii process. So that is essentially requiring you to have a negative PCR test 72 hours prior to your last leg before arriving on Hawaii. Once you get off the plane, they will check that, they will sign you off, giving you the green light. And once you come to campus, we will ask to see that says that you and your 2 guests are able to assist you in moving into the residence halls. So I know it is convoluted and it is a lengthy process, but it is for the safety of the student, their guests, as well as our community as a whole. So that is a state process. That is not a University of Hawaii process. So we are just following their lead in making sure everyone is safe when coming to campus.
Yeah, speaking of which, I know some students were asking about campus visitors as far as not so much for move-in, but later on in the year.
Mhm.
How are you guys expecting that to work for this fall with COVID, and how does it work normally in a non-COVID world?
Sure. So I'll start with the second. In a non-COVID year, as long as, so I'm a resident of Freer Hall, I can come downstairs and bring Amber into my building as long as, because Amber's not a resident, as long as they are escorted by a resident, they're good to go. So we do not have curfews, we do not have bed checks, we don't do any of that. Currently with COVID, if Amber does not live on campus, Amber cannot come into any of our residence halls. If Amber lives in Freer Hall, Amber cannot enter Holly Aloha, as an example. So you can only visit people who live in your current building. And again, that is all because of COVID policies and procedures to keep everyone safe at the moment.
And speaking of that, with COVID, in
Sure.
the freshman towers, how many people are there per floor?
Sure. In a typical year, it's 26. So right now it would be 13.
And then some other questions, kind of going a little bit more about the timeline. I know a lot of people have questions about kind of when they'll hear back approximately and kind of what that timeline looks like with the May 1st application deadline coming up.
Absolutely. Excuse me. So our priority deadline is May 1st. So if a student does apply by May 1st, they're guaranteed a spot to live on campus. So we will not touch any applications until after May 1st is complete. After May 1st, we will go on a rolling basis. So we have what is called priorities on what students are have first priority, second priority, third priority for housing. So we will prioritize in that manner, and it all happens on a rolling basis. So it's a little bit more internal, but we do what's called a round. So round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's how students will get their contracts. So that will happen sometime over the summer. All of that information will be done and will only be sent to the student through their Hawai'i email address. So it is very, very, very important that students are checking that regularly. I know with prom, graduation, vacations, things like that, folks typically often may not check their email and will forget. If that 2-week period expires, you will have to reapply altogether. So if you wanted to live in a specific RLP or residence hall, that may no longer be an option because you'll go back to the bottom of the list. So we strongly encourage folks to please check your Hawai'i email address regularly. That is our official means of communication, and that only goes to the student. Parents, I know that's hard to hear because you're like, I'm paying for it. We understand that, but unfortunately, with some of the federal rules and all that stuff, we can only work with the students.
Yeah, and so say if somebody already submitted their application, but they want to change something, what would be the best way to approach that?
Absolutely. So I'm going to put the email address up here. If I spelled Hawai'i right, that second A gets me all the time. So you can email reslife@hawaii.edu. Again, it has to come from the student, and specifically just outlining to me what they want to change in their application. We can certainly help navigate that process or refer you over to the staff who can help you with that. So again, that's reslife@hawaii.edu.
Yeah, and would that be the best email to confirm that you guys have received their housing confirmation? I know students get very nervous just wanting to ensure everything is going smoothly.
Sure. So we do have two. So I will put the second one up here as well. So for a lot of the specific things relating to your contract, we suggest people email the UHMSH. So if you think about it, University of Hawaii at Manoa Student Housing at hawaii.edu. That is one place that you can always email, or ResLife. Either one of them, we will send it to the person who is best appropriate to help answer those questions.
And then just some other questions about, let's see, we've got quite a few. So thank you all. I know we have over 200 questions asked, so we appreciate you guys' patience as we go through them. Just a few more is, if students said that they were originally planning to live off campus, but now they do want to live on campus, how would that work?
Sure. In terms of student housing, just apply by May 1st and we're good to go. In terms of if the student is receiving or eligible for financial aid, I would just communicate with that office just to make sure that they know that you have switched, because that may change your eligibility for awards and money, because you are coming to live on campus, which is certain costs versus living at home or elsewhere. So I would just encourage folks to do that.
And then say if a student applies for housing now, of course, they're good to go before the May 1st deadline, but then say something comes up in June or whenever, and they want to go ahead and cancel their application, how does that process work before they've officially received their contract and then after they've already paid their deposit?
If you do before you submit your deposit, you're good to go. Just I would say again, just email us in writing that says, you know what, I'm changed my mind, I'm good to go. You will lose the $25 application fee, but you'll be all set. In terms of after you submitted your deposit and you're contracted, again, the faster you let us know, the better it is, because there are different penalties and different fees that may be paid depending on how late into the summer it is, or if you've already moved into the residence halls. This is an academic year contract, so you are kind of locked into that fall and spring semester.
I think that's a big question, especially with COVID, everything keeps changing naturally. And then some kind of questions about the meal plans. I know with COVID, some of the, not restaurants, but the on-campus dining options were a little bit more limited. Do you have any more information about what we predicted to look like for fall?
Sure. So even currently, so all of our dining facilities in the residence halls are open for dine-in as well as takeout. So students we do a lot of contract tracing, so you will be required to fill out a Google form just of, this is my name, here's my phone number, here's who I'm eating with. You're given, similar to a lot of different restaurants, you're given a little number, and you'll go to that table, and that's where you'll be eating. Students can also get takeout, which you'll get a box, and you can fill up the box with food, and then you'll be able to take it out. So our dining facilities all you care to eat. So it just depends on what students feel more comfortable doing, whether it's dining in, either by themselves or with up to a group of 4 individuals, or if they want to take out and eat outside or eat in the residence hall room, it's completely up to them.
And then kind of going back to a little bit more about the housing contract.
Sure.
When is that $400 contract due for housing for the incoming students?
Sure. That's a little complicated because it happens on a rolling basis. So it's not everyone gets assigned at once and the $400 are due on this day. So that's why once you are contracted, you will have 2 weeks to review your contract, sign it, and pay the $400. So again, on a rolling basis.
Make sure you're checking that Hawaii.edu emails.
Absolutely.
Can't stress that enough. Yeah. I know last year, and Kenny knows more than I do, there's a lot of students who are like, wait, they check it that 1 minute after the deadline. So just keep checking and make sure your notifications are turned on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something else to note about that is that $400 is not covered by financial aid. So a student will have to pay that $400 out of pocket first. If you do have excess money at the end of your term, you will get that money back, depending on what your package looks like. So it is something that folks are required to do before dispersing of your money comes in.
So just a couple last questions, just kind of reiterating some things I know you mentioned earlier, but is housing guaranteed for freshmen or those incoming students, especially if you can talk about it for those who are out of state versus those who are in state / the island of Oahu, and then also what it's like if it is guaranteed for 4 years or if it's just their first year or how that works.
Absolutely. So again, any student who applies by May 1st will be guaranteed a spot to live on campus. So again, if you apply by May 1st, you're good to go. So that is the really, really important deadline is May 1st for us. Housing is available for all, so we will have housing available for all students who apply by May 1st. After May 1st, it's on space availability. So if we have 300 spaces, we'll take the first 300 people after May 1st, or whatever the case may be after that. Students in a traditional year, we do have second, third, fourth, fifth year students who do live with us. We also have graduate students who live with us in all levels of housing. So students can choose to live with us for more than 1 to 2 years. So we do offer housing multiple years. So if you look at the priority list, the first priority is for returning students. So if I live on campus now and want to come back next year, I have first priority to pick that as an option.
And then just kind of the last couple quick questions. Let's see, there's so many good, great questions. Let's see, we already answered that. Is there anything that you would really recommend for students to know, just like any last minute pieces of advice or parting words that you have?
Absolutely. So one, I think it's really important for our students to remember that everyone's going through the same boat. Everyone is going to come to campus being brand new and fresh into this building. Make the most of your experience. Folks are like, oh, well, I don't know anyone, or I'm new to this, or things like that. So is everybody else. We have a very intentional model to make sure folks feel comfortable, feel safe, feel included when they come to campus. We do ask students to venture outside of the comfort zone a little bit, get to meet different people who are different from themselves, go to clubs and organizations, do keep their door open, go talk to their neighbors, do some of those pieces that I think are really, really valuable, specifically to living on campus, and specifically our university at the here in Manoa, right? So I think those are some of the things that are really important that our students are like, oh, well, I'm shy, I don't want to put myself out there. Put yourself out there, and you will make the most out of it. We do know that this year, specifically with COVID and next year with COVID, things will look a little bit different. We do understand that. We are trying our best and we'll do whatever we can to give you as traditional of a first year experience as we possibly can, but your health and safety are our first priority. So you'll get a lot of emails that say, please wear a mask. Please wear a mask. Because even if you have been vaccinated, please wear a mask. Because for us, that is our first priority, is to make sure you are safe to be able to go to school here, right? So I know sometimes folks feel invincible, feel like, do I really need to do this? Please just do it. Please remember social distancing, please remember some of those things, because I think they're important. They're important to make sure that folks are healthy, are doing well, and have a great first year experience, because that's kind of what we're all here for, to make sure that you have a smooth transition to campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and say thank you so much to Kenny for joining us here today and giving us all these great insights about all of this wonderful information about our student housing. For students, if you guys are wondering where the recording will be located, so you can review this again, it will be posted on our YouTube page, and we will also go ahead and email it out to you. I'm going to go ahead and in the chat, I'll go ahead and put a link to that YouTube playlist. And then, yeah, if you guys have any questions, definitely let us know later on. But we hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day. And we look forward to you guys joining us for the next upcoming Warrior webinar. Have a good one. Aloha.
Bye, everyone.